Damn it, what was that? Ow! Hey everybody, how's it going? So today we're going to be fixing a MacBook at component level. If you don't want to watch the video, what you can do to check out information on repairs is check out wiki2.rossmangroup.com. Wiki2.rossmangroup.com features all sorts of troubleshooting guides where we show you how to fix issues with your MacBook. So you can click right over here, troubleshooting guides on wiki2.rossmangroup.com. You can click something like the MacBook Air. You can then click onto the A1465 from 2015, 2016, and it will show you a list of problems right there so that you can get an idea of how to fix it. It's beautiful. All the information right there for you, and anybody can contribute. It's the beauty of wiki2.rossmangroup.com. Anyway, let's get to fixing this MacBook. So in order to fix the MacBook, we need to open the MacBook. We are going to open the MacBook. Hope all of you have a new year that's off to a lovely start. My new year is off to a particularly garbage start myself. That's a MacBook. That's a MacBook with some food on it. Look at all the food. How dare you fix Dota. When G3 Hot has no pulse, you must wick it. You people are weird. That's what you people are. You're weird. All right. So what do we have here? We have it going from 12 milliamps to 70, 1270, 1270, 1290, 1290. Now, what that indicates is some form of short circuit. It's trying to turn on and then failing to turn on. That's typically indicative of a short circuit. However, it's not the behavior that we expect from the Air. So I'm going to unplug a few things, and I'm going to try and unplug a few things and figure out what's causing it. We're going to unplug a few things at a time and see, are any of the things that are plugged into the MacBook causing it to act this way? I hope all of you are having a lovely day and a lovely start to your 2021s. It's interesting because I actually broke my first New Year's resolution within minutes of making it. My New Year's resolution was to lead a lower stress lifestyle in 2021 than in 2020. And magically, stress found me. So now I have to come up with a way to deal with it that is going to be lower in stress rather than higher. However, turning it into a lower stress year is going to mean being seen as a piece of shit by people that I deal with who cause me stress, and I don't really know how to square that circle, but we'll see. We'll see. All right, so I'm kind of curious if I unplug the SSD that had food on it, if we relieve our problem. Also, there's some food on this side of the board. I'm going to wipe the food off and see if that fixes it. Wouldn't it be nice if our problem could be fixed by removing the food from the MacBook? Thanks for improving my new year already by your streams. I hope your year improves rapidly. Jim, we'll see. We'll see. 2021 might just wind up being the most stressful year of them all. But it could be a good thing for me because it could force me to make some real serious life changes that may make me considerably more happy. Okay, looks like the exact same behavior. So unplugging everything from the machine does not seem to have changed much. Now granted, it's not going up to 100 milliamps now. It's going up, down, up, down, up, down, 0, 24, 0, 24, 0, 24. However, it is going up and down 0, 24, 0, 24, 0, 24 in the manner that you would expect if there was a short circuit that was causing one of the rails to shut itself down right after it turns on because of a short upstream of that individual rail. So we're going to go and try to measure each rail and see if we could figure out which one is blinking and why. First thing we do is we check our PP bus. Remember not to be a koala. Check on both sides of the fuse. 8.6, bada bing. We have a green light. PP342_G3Hot's present. I'm a happy dude. Next up is we're going to check on the clock voltage. PPVRTC_G3Hot. Need that clock voltage there. 3.4, happy dude. PP5ES5. PP5ES5 is 5 volts, but then goes down to 2.4. Okay, let's check PP5ES4. PP5ES4 is missing. PP3V3S5 is going to be up there. Okay, so that was PP3V3S5 that I was measuring then up here. And it's also jumping. All right, so let's take a look at this. Now, if we go to page, I think 66 or 67 of the schematic, what you're going to find here are a list of power rails. See this? This is a list of rails. All of what you see here are power rails. Now, all of these power rails show up in a sequence. So G3 hot are so what you have here is you have the prefix and the suffix. The prefix is the name of the rail. The suffix is when it's present. So these are all going to be present at different times. 1 second, I'm not zooming properly. There we go. So for instance, G3 hot, those are the rails that are always on all the time. S5 are also rails that are on all the time. S4 are rails that are on when the computer is hibernating. S3 are rails that are on when the computer is sleeping. And SO are rails that are on when the computer is on and working. So that's what all these numbers here mean. So something like an S5 rail, let's say a G3 hot rail, that's like the battery. The battery is always there. It's always on. An S5 rail, kind of the same shit. S4 rail is going to be on when the computer is hibernating. So let's say the keyboard would still get power because you need to be able to wake it up from hibernation by hitting a keyboard key, or the trackpad because you need to be able to click the trackpad to turn it on, or a USB device because USB would be what you use to, USB is what you're going to use to have your mouse connect to click something to turn it back on and waken it from hibernation. S3 is sleeping, so it's one state up from hibernation. That's when the RAM is being powered. You may notice that a computer may pop back into place a little quicker when it's put to sleep rather than hibernation, especially during the times before an SSD when you would have to, either get all your stuff out from the hard drive to place it back on the desktop with hibernation, or from RAM, which is S3, suspend or sleep. And SO is going to be when the computer's on as usual. So we checked our G3 hot rails first, PPVRTC G3 hot, and PPBus G3 hot, and PP3V4 2_G3 hot, and they were all present. So then we moved on to the S5s, and when I moved on to the first S5 rail here, PP5ES5, which is going to be created by our U7501 TPS 50980, available on store.rossmangroup.com with same-day shipping from New York City. Everyday low prices, store.rossmangroup.com. That chip over there. This is what creates PP5ES5, as well as creating PP3V3S5. Now, here's what we noticed with this chip. Two of the rails that are created by this chip, both PP3V3S5 and PP5ES5, are both pulsing. They're both going up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. What does that tell me? What is the likelihood that both of those rails are going up and down? Very low. What's happening here is that something attached to U7501 is shorted to ground, and as a result, it's causing everything controlled by that chip to be screwy. It's not that I'm going to troubleshoot two rails separately. They both have something in common. And what they both have in common is that they are both powered. They're created by U7501, and U7501 is clearly having an issue. Now, why is it jumping up and down? Well, there's going to be a rail that's short-circuited. That's why, because the moment it turns out, it's like, ow, ow. And that's usually caused by a short circuit, something that's sucking all the power to ground. So when you see it going up and down in power like that, like up to 75 milliamps and down, it's trying to turn on and going, gah, can't, gah, can't. And that's what's causing this. Now, there are many different rails in the system that are controlled by this. You may think that just because the chip creates PP5ES5, PP5ES4, and PP3V3S5 over here, that simply because it's creating those three rails that's all it's responsible for. Nuh-uh, there's way more than that. So check this out. If we check PP3V3S4, you'll see that that is a rail that is going to be created Okay, here we go. So PP3V3S5 is actually going to create PP3V3S4 via this FET. So this FET takes PP3V3S5 and is going to turn it into PP3V3S4. Actually, whoops, my bad, not that FET. This FET, almost the same shit. So this FET, this switch is going to take PP3V3S5, and when S4 power enable is present, it turns into PP3V3S4. So U7501 is not just responsible for PP3V3S5, PP5ES5, and PP5ES4. It's also responsible for PP5ES5, PP5ES4, PP5ES3, PP5ESO, PP3V3S5, PP3V3S4, PP3V3S4, and PP3V3S3. That's a lot of rails. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure all those upstream rails, because any one of those upstream rails that is shorted to ground will cause one of the primary rails to be shorted to ground. If PP3V3S5 is creating PP3V3S4, PP3 PP33S3, PP33SO, that means that any one of those upstream rails being shorted to ground will cause PP33S5 to pulse. Same thing is true PP5ES5. If PP5ES4, PP5ES3, PP5ESO is shorted to ground, it's going to cause PP5ES5 to do its pulsing. So we're going to measure every single one of those and see where the short circuit is. So let's do that right now. I'm going to check over here. First thing I'm going to do, we're going to measure a short on PP33S5. PP33S5. Let's get this on the screen. See if it's short to ground. PP5E. PP33S5, not short to ground. PP5ES5, not shorted to ground. PP5ES4. Aha! There we go. PP5ES4 is shorted to ground. So PP5ES4 is going to be created by this U7501 taking PP-D3 hot, splitting up like a buck converter does into smaller pulses, and so you get 5 volts through here. So L7520, this is going to be where it gets outputted to. Now, the question is then going to be, what on PP5ES4 RS3 is going to be shorted? Now, most of the time, the problem is going to be one of the caps. Usually it's one of these tantalum caps over here. These tantalum caps are notorious for shorting, and especially when you throw food on them. And if you notice, those caps on the board are located right next to where the food had been donated to this little MacBook. So these are the caps, and that's the food. So something tells me that there is not going to be, that there is some causation when you look at the food over here and these caps that you see over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inject some voltage, but admittedly I know it's probably going to be one of these two. And then we're going to get on with it and try and figure out which it is. So next, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lower my power supply voltage over here to a lower voltage because I don't want to send 18 volts to a 5-volt rail. We are going to lower it to, let's say, 1 volt. And then we're going to put some power through it. And then we're going to do something called the OWI test. Does anybody remember what the OWI test here is? The OWI test is a unique test that allows us to very quickly and efficiently figure out what is shorted to ground. So this is a beautiful test because you don't need a fancy schmancy high-end thermal camera to make it work. So what we do, we take the ground of our power supply, we attach it to the ground of the board, which is going to be that little screw hole over there. And then we take this, which is going to be the 1 volt of my power supply. Run it through here. And we're going to attach it to the 5-volt rail. And see what happens. 1, 2. Okay. We got some power going through. The Paul Daniels software is not showing that, but Paul Daniels software appears to be drunk at the moment, so we're just going to turn the Paul Daniels software off. I can already smell that something is going bad here, and it smells pretty awful. Okay, we got 3 amps going through. 3 amps at 1.2 volts. Now we're going to do the OWI test. Huh. I should be feeling something getting hot now. Okay, so when I don't feel anything getting hot, what I do is I go back to my board view and I look at every section. So what do we have here? What goes to ground? This does not go to ground, so that's not going to be it. That goes to ground on the DC in board, so that could potentially be it. Use your finger, that was my mistake. Okay, we got a chip on the other side of the board here. That has a connection to ground, so it could be that. We have a cap on the bottom left of the board over there. We have this cap over here, this chip, and this chip. So we're just going to, turn it around. And now I can smell it. So since I can smell it, this should be pretty straightforward for creating an owl. Not so much. All right. It's actually over here. Interesting. Is it over here? Interesting. Whoa, I felt an owl. Where did the owl come from? Madru Gamer said ultimate thermal sensor would be your weenie. You know what? That could make an interesting stream. Everybody here who wants me to use my penis for the owie test to find out what is ow? Never mind. Okay, it's something down here. It's got to be something down here. This. See, I'd have found it already if I weren't afraid to use my wiener. It's. Damn it. What was that? Ow? Okay, it's you. It's you, you. All right. We've finally gotten an ow. Now that we've gotten an ow, we go to the alcohol to win it over. When in doubt, ow. All right, so my ow happened somewhere around here. Now, can anybody notice that there's a capacitor that looks like it's actually shit itself? See this? This looks like it shit itself, and I'm fairly certain that's the cause of my problem. And we're going to confirm it right now. So I'm going to find my alcohol container. Lewis needs a FLIR 1. FLIR 1 takes the fun out of the owie test. Interestingly enough, nothing over there is getting hot. That's strange. Also, will require getting up and walking to the other side of the room and going back to Windows on the office computer, which I don't feel like doing right now. So when I touch it, it actually burns my finger. But, yeah, there we go. Now you can see the alcohol sizzling over it. See that? So see this cap? The one that says Jissy on it? It's kind of like low-key calling me a sissy. Here, I'll take the power off for a second. We'll put the alcohol on it, and watch what happens when I plug it in. You ready? 1, 2. The Jissy cap immediately burns away. And as you can see on the schematic over here, PP5VS4, which is the rail that was shorted, over here, R6414. Oh shit, I got alcohol on the trackball. That destroys it. That is a resistor that leads directly over to C6401, which is over here, which is shorted to ground. And that is for PP5VS3 for a speaker amplifier. So I'm going to remove that cap that is shorted, and everything will work lovely and beautiful again, the same way it did before. And then we will have a happy Apple product and a happy user. And everybody will be happy, 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 happy. Happy, 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 happy. Now this cap is in a difficult place to take off the board. Go Colts, I hope that was a good experience and not a bad one, but I pray it was a good one. One of the crappy parts of this business is having to give people bad news all day. It gets kind of tiring. It's like when people say they watch for a really long... Oh God, you sent a hard drive. Okay. I'm afraid. Yeah, a big part of this job is giving people bad news on a regular basis, so when people are... So when people say, I've watched your stuff for a long time, I'm excited to become a customer, it's always, oh no, I don't want to be the one to give you bad news. Because so much of this job is giving people bad news. Hopefully we don't have to give you bad news. We'll see. I pray that we don't have to give you bad news. You could see that one of the pads was kind of welded to the little piece of the cap that was left. Okay, so I'm going to grab a capacitor and then put that capacitor on this board. And it's going to work, and it's going to be happy, happy. And then the customer will be happy, happy. And then you all will be happy, 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 happy. Right? That's the way this works. No, Copaz, no. The short is gone. This is as straightforward as it gets. I've measured it with my eyes and my brain, and I'm good. You're not going to ruin this, Copaz. I'm good. No more measuring needs to be done here. Christopher, we're going to verify the short is gone, but we're not going to do it the Copaz way. We're going to do it the Lewis way by plugging it back in again. But that's the thing. The short is gone. You people are crazy. That was the short. It was burned. That's a clear and obvious troll. All right, so we're going to plug it in. And you got a fan spin. See that, Copaz? Wishing me bad? Assuming the short is still there? Fight me. Anyway. So it works. So what was wrong with this board? What was causing it to not work? Every power rail that is associated with the U7501 was fluctuating. PP3V3S5, PP5VS5. PP5VS4 wasn't present. PP5VS4 wound up being short to the ground. Now, all those rails being bad said that one of those rails was going to be the problem. It wasn't going to be a rail attached to another chip. It was going to be a rail attached to that one. Now, I'm not saying that PP3V3S5, PP5VS5, and PP5VS4 are the problem. I'm saying that PP3V3S5 and PP5VS5 being the problem means that one of those three, or one of the upstream rails that is created by that chip through a FET, is going to be shorted to ground, which happened to be the case. The board was shorted to ground as a result of PP5VS4 being shorted to ground because PP5VS3 was shorted to ground through a resistor of PP5VS4 that resulted in the 0 ohm short that you had, and the board jumping to 70, 90 milliamps and then going back down. When you see that behavior, when you see that it is going from 24 milliamps, PM Sleep S4L right about to be present but not just yet, to 100 or 90 milliamps and then back down immediately, and it's short-circuited. Something's keeping it from getting where it needs to be. And that's where we were. It was a short, and now it's fixed. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. If you want to get a hot air station like the ones that I use here, or the ones that they use out there, you can go to store.rossmangroup.com. We have the Atten 862 rework station. They are on sale at the moment if you use the checkout code 19PLD73. That's 19PLD73. That is the Paul Daniels discount code off of the Atten hot air rework station. We also have some new connectors in stock as well, so if you check out store.rossmangroup.com over here, when you go to store.rossmangroup.com, you can get some pretty cool stuff. Let me show you. So one of the first things that you'll be able to get at store.rossmangroup.com, besides a picture of Paul when he was almost happy, or me when I actually had black hair before my stress took over my life, you can find over here, look at this. So you can get a charge port for a USB-C MacBook Pro. You can get something like the LCD connector for an A1706 or A1707 MacBook Pro, because you know how they like to send 52 volts to the graphics mux. And we also sell the actual graphics mux chip itself. So for the A1707 and A1990 MacBook Pros, one of the things I talk about is how it'll often wind up with 52 volts going to the graphics mux, because the 52 volt backlight line on this connector is right next to the 1.7 volt data line for picture. Well, if you want to be able to refurbish the LCD, the board, and also refurbish the screen, you can get this, and instead of having to buy a new screen and a new board, you have the mux chip over here that I've covered in some previous videos. This is a new product that we've got here, as well as the LCD connector directly from Novastack, which is a pretty cool thing. This LCD connector actually came from Novastack. It wasn't in a spool. It wasn't torn from a donor board, which is pretty cool. And we're going to keep trying to add stuff like this to store.rossmangroup.com that makes it just a little bit easier to work on these products. Just some of the stuff that you really wouldn't expect to find on most other websites. And we are going to keep adding to the wiki here at wiki.rossmangroup.com. Again, it is my goal to make it as easy for you to work on these boards as it is for me to work on these boards, and I will continue to add stuff here. Lastly, you can find us on LBRY, on Library. If you want to find us without ads, it's pretty much most of the same content that you have here, and the username is the same thing, Rossman Group. A lot of people complain about YouTube. A lot of people talk about how YouTube is horrible, but very few people then wind up switching over to other platforms. And unlike, let's say, moving from here to the other side of the country, or moving jobs, moving careers, moving locations, moving websites is actually a fairly easy thing to do. So if you're not particularly excited about the direction that Google appears to be going, or that YouTube and a lot of these big tech companies are going, one thing that I think you should check out is a site like Library. Over here, I will have a link down below, unless I forget. Hopefully I don't. Pretty much all the stuff that I do here is mirrored to Library, and Library has no advertisements. You can comment on the platform. It's pretty much open source, to my knowledge, the way that they do everything that they do. It's not like they're making their money off of sucking out all your data. Again, I get paid way more money if you watch the content on YouTube than if you watch it on Library, and I would prefer that you watch it on Library because, frankly, Google are a bunch of... That's it for today. I'll see you all in the next video. I hope you learned something, and I hope you have a very good 2021.
I'm sorry we let you down, Ryan. God forgive me.